No dominance, no guarantees, just chaos.
Every week, the so-called contenders fall, and the line between real and fake gets thinner.
But championship DNA always shows up.
Today, we're finding out who really has it.
These are the true contenders of the NFL.
Who's the true contender? We got to know. Adam, I got to know. Who
are
they? Who are they, man?
Oh my gosh, this is going to be fun because, like, in reality, you know, I feel like I can't remember in recent history a time where those teams that we would consider contenders have shown so much weakness.
Yes. And yet at the same time, so many of those ones that either currently or previously earlier in the season did show weakness still appear on my list. For a little bit of context, folks, we were forced this early in the season by ourselves, when I say forced, to pick the 5 teams that we individually think are the real contenders. And 5 is a really hard number for as wide open as it seems right now.
It sure is. Like, what teams are you going to leave out? All of those different things. So we talked about it before we came and recorded. And we each know who we picked. And so we have 3 teams that we both picked as true contenders. And then 2 teams that are outliers. So, Jonathan, why don't you give your first team and we can talk about them.
I picked 4, and these are not in order, to be clear. These are just 5 ambiguous teams. I got to say that the Rams are a contender. The Rams are a couple of fluky blocked field goals away from having beaten the reigning Super Bowl champion, being 6-1, tied for the best record in the league and the number 1 seed in NFC. That's where the Rams are right now. And yet, because of that loss and then a tiebreaker loss to the 49ers, they're not even leading their division right now. They're the 5 seed in the current playoff picture. Take that as a lesson for right now, folks, for the rest of this video. The current playoff picture does not hardly matter to me whatsoever. The NFL season is long. The only obstacle that I see for this team from contending at the highest level and making it to an NFC championship is Matthew Stafford's health. And that's a real concern, but it's about the only thing for me right now.
Yeah. So I obviously didn't include the Rams as real contenders, although they would definitely be high up off the list. The Rams have looked incredible. I think that you finally got to see what that Rams offense can produce in terms of points when it comes to, like, against the Jaguars in London. What's weird about the Rams this year is that Matthew Stafford has played incredibly, and he's had these games where he's had over 300 yards, looked efficient, looked productive. They're driving up and down the field, and then weird things happen, and they're just not able to score points. This game against the Jaguars was kind of the inverse of that, where he only had like 150 some odd yards, but yet they were able to put so many points on the board. And so for right now, you know, I'm projecting a bit with some teams, but I'm also trying to keep in mind what has happened in the NFL this season. And so for me, the reason the Rams aren't out there or on my list is simply just because they haven't been able to finish drives and score the points that they needed throughout the season. And that's like the biggest weakness that I've seen. Their defense looks great. They just haven't been able to close out some of those games. And I think that matters when we're talking about contenders.
No, it's a tough list. It's a tough cut, but they were relatively solidly on my list.
Yeah. Again, when you have the combination of a healthy Matthew Stafford, Sean McVay, and a young feisty defense that can pressure the quarterback,
all I'm saying, man.
You always have the ability to make a run at the Super Bowl.
100%. Well, what's your first contender, Adam?
So my first team, and this is kind of what I said, like, I want to take into account what's happened this year, is the Indianapolis Colts, which could be surprising to some people. I felt as if I had an obligation to put them on my list because they have been the most dominant team and offense that we've seen in the NFL this year. Like, not just in terms of record, they legitimately have the most efficient offense that we've seen in the last century. And all of the teams that are close to them on that list, they're first, so basically 2 through 5, are all teams that were contending for NFC championships, AFC championships, and for Super Bowls. The teams on that list in second place, if I can just remember it off the top of my head, that'd be cool. But the teams are the 07 Patriots, it's the 2020 Packers, it's the last year's Lions, and then the 2018 Chiefs. Right. So the Lions were the only team on that list that wasn't competing at least for a championship game. And so the biggest thing with the Colts is not just like how efficiently they've been playing, but I think how sustainable that efficiency looks. Obviously it starts with the run game. They have dominated in the rushing attack. And I love me some good offensive linemen. They have put on a clinic. There is not an offensive line in the NFL that has better communication than the Colts offensive line. That unit moves as one. And, you know, when you think about a simple way of thinking about offensive line play is that they're creating a wall, right? And so if they're creating a wall, the worst thing that could happen to that wall is that there's a crack in it, that there's a hole in it, that there's a way for the defense to maneuver through it. But if they're communicating on the same level, there's not going to be any cracks. There's not going to be any holes. And that has just created such a foundation and floor for this offense that you add on top of it, Shane Steichen's incredible scheme, right? His ability to use the motion to create advantages, his ability to mix up the play calling. He seems to always have the ability against good defenses, the Broncos, the Chargers, even the Rams, right? Good defenses to get Tyler Warren open in the flat. And we can't forget about Tyler Warren, right? Tyler Warren has played incredible elite tight end play. He's able to do pretty much anything that they ask of him, and they're asking a lot of him. He's even lined up in the backfield at times. They've just been incredible.
My thoughts on the Colts, a few. One, remind me again what their one loss was?
It was to the Rams.
I win.
No, because the old...
No, I'm messing with you. I'm messing with you.
No.
Basically, I'm right. But no, my broader analysis, because part of the way that my mind works, which it's not better or worse than the way your mind works and the way you analyze things, it's just different. I look at where teams fit into NFL history. And I try to make comparisons. And I make this comparison not in terms of style of play whatsoever. A little bit, but not really. The 2019-2020 Tennessee Titans. That's what I see this team as, which is to say there's a real chance that this team is playing in the AFC Championship, but I cannot envision a world in which they win a Super Bowl. And for me, by default, I think that they probably will mathematically, by seeding and length in the playoffs, probably end up going farther than a couple of teams on this list. But the ceiling of those teams for me in terms of contending to win a Super Bowl is what leaves Indiana barely off of my list right now. They would probably be my number 6, but that is the cut for me.
I would compare them, and obviously there's clear differences. Offensively, I compare them to the Eagles of last year, where you had this dominant rushing attack that pretty much opened everything up, and an offensive scheme that played perfectly to those strengths. Last year, the Eagles had a dominant offensive line. The eye test is telling me that the Colts offensive line this year is playing better than the Eagles did at any point last year. Jonathan Taylor is obviously incredible. And the biggest thing here is, again, the sustainability of how their offense is moving the ball. I just think that it can work for an extended period of time. And I don't know if there's a lot of defenses out there, if any, that will consistently get stops against them. So the thing obviously holding them back is the defense. Lou
is
Anarumo was not right for the Bengals. He is right for this Colts defense. The opportune turnovers, the confusing of the quarterback, the changes at halftime, it's all working to their favor. And they have a lot of good veteran pieces, as well as young players. They have Latu attacking the quarterback to Forrest Buckner, Zaire Franklin, Charvarius Ward is on the IR, but he's a good player, Cam Bynum. Like, they have these veteran pieces to be able to carry out the scheme that I think can just do enough that if they're putting up 30 points a game, they're going to be able to go far.
in terms of and for a good portion of the early 21st century, I was, a young football fan by doctrine and by family, but not really conscious for the early portions of it. If the Colts win the Super Bowl this year, in terms of the perspective of where the consensus was to start the season and where it ended, it would be the most shocking Super Bowl ever in the last 21st century. Like,
The
in
only one
terms
that
of,
could compete is the Giants beating the undefeated Patriots.
and I'm there with you, but I feel like that's shocking more so in terms of the individual game of the Super Bowl. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
The only other one that comes to mind is Rich Gannon and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in 2003. But I don't know what the narrative of the Bucs was heading into that season. And I'm not saying that as a trump card to win this argument. Ultimately, it's subjective, but it would be insane. I mean, it would, if the Colts win the Super Bowl this year, it would literally fundamentally change the way that I analyze the NFL.
Oh, I guess, like, for me, it's just kind of confirming what I think creates winning football, which is
That's fair, but I'm saying, like, I would have to do some soul searching if the Colts won this offseason and go, oh, what were my biases that kept me from being so off the radar?
I think everyone would have to do that. And I think a lot of it just has to do with underestimating Shane Steichen's scheme over as, like, dude, how bad was Anthony Richardson?
My goodness.
Yikes.
And to be clear, from the Shane Steichen hiring, I was pro Shane Steichen. I'd just been losing steam. But anyways, we can move on to our next contenders.
The one thing I'll say is it's hard for me to keep them off the list when they've been playing a style of offense and really defense that I think is sustainable.
Yeah, and 7 weeks in, they have the best record in the NFL. It's fair. You've got a lot on your side.
What's your next team?
My next team is the Philadelphia Eagles.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have the Eagles on your list?
I don't.
I didn't think so. I was looking for a reason to not include Philadelphia, and that's not even because of my dislike for them as a Chiefs fan and whatever, but simply as a team I have my doubts, and yet this team just wins, and they have a game against the Giants coming up where they're not getting swept by the Giants. They're going to win that game. They'll be 6-2. Then they hit a bye week and come out against their toughest 3-game stretch of the season, which is at Green Bay, home for Detroit, at Dallas. If they go 2-1 in that stretch, I almost have to just lock them in to a top 2 seed in the NFC, winning the NFC East again. And I just, I don't think that this team is anywhere near where they were at last season. But whatever stupid concoction that they have in that building, it works somehow, and it ticks me off, but it does, and so I can't leave them off of my list.
Yeah, the stupid concoction is just the amount of weapons that they have on that offense. Here's the thing, the reason why I left the Eagles off, because obviously they're the obvious choice, right? They had those 2 freaky games, but they're still playing well, and Jalen Hurts just had the best game of his potentially career, definitely this season. Here's why I didn't. There's really 2 reasons. The first one is that I just don't feel confident about them in a playoff situation. It's almost, and maybe this is bias and it's completely unfair. It probably is. There's just a part of me that thinks like, I just don't like they could win
Here's
the
the
NFC,
thing.
and I just
Here's the
based on
answer
the
to
play
it.
on the
It's Nick
field,
Sirianni. I have no
yeah,
level of trust in him. And somehow, in the last 3 seasons, he's been to 2 Super Bowls and won one of them.
yeah, it's like, and it's not just him. There's just, it really is a gut. I just do not, my gut is telling me that even if they win the NFC, and like, think about it, my predictions, right? Like when we predicted who was going to win the Super Bowl, I had Bills Buccaneers, and I had the Buccaneers beating the Eagles in the NFC Championship. I just don't, I think that they could potentially make, I don't know. It's just a gut feeling. It's as simple as that.
That's fair.
The biggest thing, though, the analytical reason, is because even in spite of their win against the Vikings, they were not able to get Saquon Barkley going. 19 carries, 2.32 yards per carry.
Ugh.
Not good. And so if you're telling me that what a bounce back after those last 2 weeks for the Eagles is, what that means is that Jalen Hurts starts hitting those deep passes he was trying in those 2 weeks he lost, and they're still not opening it up in the middle of the field, and they're still not effectively running the ball.
The middle of the field stuff does concern me. But at the same time,
it's one of those things where it's
you're talking me out of it somewhat, but at the same time, I just have to reaffirm to myself that they're the reigning Super Bowl champion. They're gonna win this division again, and I can't leave them off.
Yeah,
but
it's just one of those things where it's like, everyone talked about Jalen Hurts as a top 5 quarterback. I never really bought into that. I think he's a good
I never did.
franchise quarterback, but I do not think that relying on him as a, predominant means of offensive production, just not just in who he is, like skill wise, but just like the type of player that he is, scares me. And like, there's always that world that they can hit fire and that they hit all those deep shots. It's not something I'm confident in if they don't have the run game going.
Yeah.
It'd be different if the run game looked great, right? Like, it'd be like, okay, who cares about the middle of the field? Because basically they're supplementing the problems with that with the run game. Because they're able to get 10-yard runs.
Yeah.
So that's it. And, the inverse of that is my next team, who I believe you left off, the Buccaneers, where in spite of the Lions loss, and in the week I predicted the Lions to lose, the Tampa Bay to win. That was just because of the Lions injuries. Before the season, I envision a world where the Buccaneers lose to the Lions and lose to the Eagles, but in the playoffs, beat them. Like, I don't know what it is. Maybe it's just my bias towards Baker Mayfield. And like, I have all these
To be
stats.
clear, in terms of preseason projection and for most of this season, I'm right there with you. I'll go ahead and say that they're not on this list. They'd probably be exactly tied at 6 with Indianapolis. And I can discuss it a little bit, but go ahead.
Really, like, I prepared all these notes, all these stats about, how well they're playing, yada, yada, yada.
Who cares? There's a dog on that team.
That's just not, there is just a dog on that team, and I believe in him. Like, and it's one of the, like, this is my list. Again, like, the Eagles, by every metric, not just record, but historical precedent, should probably be ahead of the Buccaneers and probably the Colts. I do not care. My gut is really just telling me that the Buccaneers have this ability in the playoffs to make the plays that needs to be made.
There's
and
also
Baker Mayfield sneakily is a playoff riser.
It's not sneakily. In fact, he objectively is a playoff riser. Problem is for me is I can also envision a playoff game going exactly like how this last week went, where Baker's still Baker. He didn't change anything about himself. Yeah. But it's just a moment where it's not like, oh, the lights were too bright. He didn't fundamentally change whatsoever, but just in the toughest spot possible, the plays don't hit, and then you blink and the season's over, and it's like, man, Baker's a dog. He put it all out on the field. You can't say anything bad about the
But
guy.
he missed so many throws. I don't see him missing, and I see them still being open.
Mm-hmm.
It's as simple as that.
Health is also a concern with me for the Buccaneers,
For sure.
and I'm projecting that out. I am also a little bit concerned about the youth of some of the key portions of this team.
Yeah. I mean, the
Where
receiver
it's
room.
well, but they have Mike Evans and Chris Godwin, so
True.
it's
Well,
not really that. It's more so like Bucky Irving, Emeka Egbuka, a lot of these defensive pieces, your Yaya Diabis, all of these guys where it's like, they had the playoff game last year and they ran up against, the buzzsaw that was the young rising Commanders team. I'm not going to hold that against them, but they're going to be thrust in a position potentially based on, I think, how well this regular season could go for the Buccaneers, where they're a little high off their own supply. And in the
sure.
playoffs, you get punched in the mouth and you don't bounce back up right away, you're done. The season's
Yeah.
gone. It's right there. And I can
But
envision that
here's the
happening.
thing. Outside of the Lions game, which they kept close and put them in a position to make a comeback, every game this year, that's exactly what they did.
I understand. It was really tough for me to leave them off
It's
this
a
list.
gut.
It's a gut
Like,
thing where it's like I couldn't by precedent remove the Eagles. The Rams, I've also seen them win a Super Bowl with this core, just swapping out Cooper Kupp for Puka Nacua, who he's not going to ever have a season that was as great as the one Cooper Kupp season, but in a lot of ways, Puka Nacua actually is better than Cooper Kupp.
yeah.
Stat pad, watchers aside, that's just the reality. And then we can transition this right into the next team that I'm going to talk about, which we both agree on, and that's the Lions.
Yeah.
And so just to put a button on that before I move to the Lions and we can talk about them together, I can't have 4 NFC teams in there. And I couldn't make a case for the Buccaneers to sneak above the Eagles or the Rams or
100%.
the Lions.
I understand.
The Lions, though, this is a terrifying offense that outside of a slow week 1 start has teared through everybody except Steve Spagnuolo, which no one's going to fault you for that necessarily.
Nope.
Defensive injuries are a lurking concern, but as long as Aiden Hutchinson is healthy, they're going to do enough on that side of the ball where this weaponry can keep them in any game, not just against like mediocre opponents, but top of the line opponents. It's really the thing that is the biggest obstacle is just how physical and tough the NFC North is and maintaining health throughout the season heading into the playoffs. If the offense is at like essentially full capacity and the defense still has Aiden Hutchinson, this team will be in the NFC Championship fighting to make a Super Bowl.
Yeah, and like a lot of their defensive pieces that they're missing actually really should come back within the next few weeks. Obviously, Brian Branch will be back next week. Kirby Joseph should be back. Like a lot of these guys. So yeah, no, it really is just as simple as like, look how dominant they've been. Look how dominant they are now. Like their offense is just so dynamic, right? Like they have, Sonic and Knuckles behind a offensive line that, even though it's been shuffled around this year, is still playing at an incredibly high and efficient rate. This team is scary, and they could mess around and put 40 on like anyone's head. Like there is not a team that I would confidently, like there is not a defense in the NFL right now that if they're playing at their best and the Lions are playing at their best, the Lions couldn't put like 28 points on.
Yeah, that's probably true. I would say just entirely based off of scheme, it really is the Chiefs because Spagnuolo can just Spagnuolo has this incredible ability of making game managers uncomfortable, and that's what you have to do to a game manager. And again, I use that term mostly complimentary for Jared Goff, but that's just the reality of the situation. That's about it. Everything else you're correct about.
Yeah, no, I mean, looking at the stats, 28, almost 28 points per game, 357.3 yards per game. That's 233 in the pass game, 133 in the run game. They've just been absolutely incredible, and their defense has played good enough. They get a lot of turnovers. Aiden Hutchinson can pressure the quarterback as good as any other pass rusher in the NFL. You look at all the advanced metrics that I have here, they all look incredible in the Lions' favor. It's one of those things where this is a team that is both dominant in terms of if you're one of those guys who likes to look at the stats, the Lions are dominant. If you're one of those guys who just likes to look at the film, and the Lions are dominant. Like, there's no way to get around it. This is a dominant team that will be contending for a Super Bowl.
Yeah. We can transition to the final two teams, both AFC teams. I was interested to see if you would leave one of these teams off, that being the Buffalo Bills. But clearly, I think you and I are on the same page, which is as of recording this and when people will see this, when the episode comes out, it's been 3 weeks since the Buffalo Bills have won a game, 2 back-to-back losses and then a bye week. And guess what? That has put their stock way too low.
We don't care.
We don't care. The history of the last 3 years and beyond says that pretty much no one gets through the Chiefs, but the Bills rightfully deserve to be on this list. They've just earned that spot in the AFC. Here's the quick downside, though. And because I know I'm putting the Bills as a contender, but the Patriots' next 6 games. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Browns, Falcons, Buccaneers, Jets, Bengals, Giants.
Yikes.
Even remaining relatively conservative, the Patriots can go 4-2 in that stretch. And then the next game after that is a home game against Buffalo.
Yeah.
That game on December 14th, 2025 could be the biggest AFC East divisional game that's been played since Tom Brady left for Tampa.
Yeah, for sure.
Fully outside of anything that the Bills do, like the Bills could play incredibly. And the Patriots can walk into that game on December 14th essentially controlling their destiny in terms of winning the division. I don't think that fundamentally changes much of what I think about the Bills, but it is something of note. The sneaky flip side of that is, what if that's what awakens them?
Yeah.
What if the pressure of, for the last half decade of Josh Allen, they've just been able to coast through the division, waltz into the playoffs. What if, iron sharpens iron for the Bills? That's a scary thought.
Can I say something?
Yes.
There's also this real world where, and like everything you said, pretty much same analysis here. Even if the Patriots end up winning that division, let's say hypothetically that makes the Bills the 5 seed, and they go against the Chiefs as the 2 seed. All I'm saying is that is a dynamic in terms of the type of playoff game that changes things. You know what I mean? Like, not only just going into the game.
Well,
as an underdog,
just thinking about the seeding, because it's 4 or 5.
Is it 4 or 5? Oh, you're right. You're right. I'm thinking of the divisional matchup.
I thought the direction you were going with that dynamic is that
either way, though.
No. Here's the thing: the 4-5 matchup. If, say, Patriots win this division, which is now at this point on the table, the 4-5 matchup could be the Patriots hosting the Bills.
Oh, that's a really good point. I didn't even think about that. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, no, I got completely confused. I was thinking about the divisional matchup where first goes against last. Yeah, no, like, I'm with you there. I feel like there's that world. But here's the flip side, and here's why I am nervous about this. And we talked about this when they lost to the Falcons. this tendency, and the Patriots, when they had those back-to-back losses, this tendency of the Bills to not be particularly, emotionally mature is the term that comes to mind. But like basically they lose to the Patriots, and both of us picked the Bills to beat the Falcons based on this idea that like they're going to have this bounce back game. The fact that they didn't have that bounce back game is another one of those things where it's like obviously historical precedent, and Josh Allen pretty much alone puts the Bills in this list. I have a gut feeling though that I'm like nervous about it.
That's fair. My problem is that I have to put at least 2 teams from the AFC in, and because I didn't have the Colts in there, it is still more likely to envision a world where I'm nervous about the Bills, nervous for the Bills, I should say. No offense, Indianapolis, I'm gonna still give the edge to Buffalo.
Yeah. And for me, to be honest with you, I basically went into this knowing that the Colts would be on my list just because of how dominant they've been. I can't ignore that.
Which is fair.
For me, it was a question of Bills, Eagles. Which one of those teams do I include? The difference maker was I have these gut feelings about both teams. One team is Josh Allen, one is Jalen Hurts.
If that, from your context and your perspective, that's a fair point. Bills, for all the sketchiness that we've had about them, the Bills still are in our top 5 contenders. Let's be clear.
They are still dominant and an incredible team.
And then we can cap this off with a team that if the NFL season ended today would miss the playoffs. The Kansas City Chiefs.
Yeah, man. I hate to admit it, but they got to be included.
They have to be included. And it's not simply the precedent of making 3 straight Super Bowls.
No.
It really isn't. It is entirely how they've looked this season. Now that they have Worthy back, Rashee Rice is back. I don't know how you could watch the eye test of this team the last 2 weeks and say that this is not a team that is competitive for a Super Bowl. I mean,
what I wrote down, I had no notes except for this. They are back. That's it. They're back. They're like I said this in a previous episode that will come out on Wednesday, that the Chiefs offense looks as good as it did since Mahomes' last MVP. And basically since they traded Tyreek Hill, right? That year after they traded Tyreek Hill, their offense looked incredible. They adapted incredibly well. Patrick Mahomes has not looked like in the last 2 years from that point until now, like this is the best he's looked. And it's not just Patrick Mahomes, it's the Chiefs offense as a whole. Andy Reid is cooking when it comes to just his ability to take pressure off of that offensive line and some of the weaknesses there. And then also his ability to just put his players in a position to succeed. Patrick Mahomes is playing incredibly well. He is more, it's not even necessarily mobility. It's really, the word is awareness. Like his awareness in the pocket has taken another leap that has just made him so hard to bring down. And he's always had that, but this year I feel like it's elevated to a point that makes such a huge difference. And
here's what I think it is. I think it's because he had to become hyper aware because of how bad the tackle play was last year. Yeah. And so he has that mindset, but now the tackle play is better. So he gets to have that mindset and that awareness while not having it not matter by being sacked every other play.
Yeah. And it's just literally, it really, the game for me, it was just the first game, right? It was the Ravens game, and even the Jaguars game, they lost, but it was like, they're back, right? Their offense looks incredible. We know that their defense will be clutch enough, right? Like they're Super Bowl contenders in any given week. It's going to be hard for me to
arguably the
pick
best linebacker
them.
Core in the NFL with Nick Bolton, Drew
in terms of how they're playing,
100%. Leo Chanel, yeah.
And it's
as
just
a
one of those
unit,
things where it's
they're
like
beasts.
Yeah, and it's just one of those things where I'm just looking at it, and it pains me to say, but I don't know if I'm going to pick them to lose a game for the rest of the year, to be honest.
Yeah, here's what I'll say, and we've actually had our arguments about this in the past as to which was the better Mahomes MVP season. I think it's a little, I get why, because of the numbers and the nostalgia for it, but Mahomes' best season was his 2022 MVP and Super Bowl the year after Tyreek left.
Yeah.
I think that was the best year of Mahomes' career.
Yeah.
And right now, he's on pace to essentially duplicate that. Mahomes has the chance to win the MVP. He currently leads the league in total touchdowns and total yards. He's on pace for 43 and a half touchdowns and just under 5,000 yards. If they win this division and he maintains that stat pace, he's the MVP. That's a fact.
What I hate about that too is the fact that when you're doing that analysis where you like carry it over, that includes the bad games without Worthy and Rice. Like
exactly
the game, like the offense could get better.
He's had multiple games this season. He's had 2 games this season where he only had 1 touchdown, and that's the pace he's on.
So, yeah, I hate to admit it, but the Chiefs are back.
I love to admit it. The Chiefs are back.
Shocking.
I'm very reluctant.
You,
it's a hard thing to say, but folks, the Chiefs are back. Those are our top 5 contenders. If you enjoyed, like and subscribe. Who knows how it's going to shake out? Maybe not a single team that we just mentioned is going to win the Super Bowl.
If the Colts win the Super Bowl,
I'm not kidding that I would legitimately perceive, because like I'm being half serious when I say that the Colts winning the Super Bowl would be the closest thing to like a religious schism in my mind. Like it would be like a road to Damascus moment where I would fall to my knees and feel like, Lord, that I've been led astray. I don't know what I've been doing.
Happening. It really would definitely change. I think you would have to. Anyone who took a serious look at this offseason and did any sort of projecting would have to have a serious, I guess you could say, like, at least discussion in their mind of like what went wrong, like what. And here's the thing missing?
Too, I pray that they don't, and I don't think that they will. But if they do, NFL discourse is going to be horrible because you won't be able to discredit any take. It will set the precedent that legitimately there's going to be people on there that are like, I said that the Colts were winning the Super Bowl, and it's like, okay, it's going to remove truth and reason and rightness will be gone.
Will go out the window. It'll be completely gone. Yeah, no, it definitely would be a pretty mind-shattering experience. But again, I'll say
the Colts winning the Super Bowl would be the closest I get to like doing hard drugs.
The last thing I'll say on this is simply that in my mind, the way that what would have to happen for the Colts to like realistically win the Super Bowl is, I mean, I just feel like they have a formula that I could see winning, to be honest with you.
That's fair.
The question is just like, can they keep it up?
I didn't think of it until you said it. The formula that it is the closest to is the Eagles last year.
Yeah, I mean, and like the difference clearly is like the defensive dominance, right? But like I don't think that they will ever like go out in like a playoff run and dominate every team. Like I think it will be a situation where it's like they're winning close matchups, but they're rushing for over 100 yards. And
what if it is? What if they win like every playoff game handily and then just like blow the AFC?
That would really change my entire perspective. Yeah, if they like went in and just like,
what if anything? What if like a bomb dropped on our head right now?
Another reference. That's the second time in 2 weeks that you've made that reference. But
what
anyway,
if anything?
But I think the fact that we're even talking about this, to cap off this whole discussion in the video, is the fact that the race for the Super Bowl is wide open, and it feels a lot more wide open than it's been in the past, and we just got to sit here and enjoy the ride.
Absolutely. Have a good one, folks.
All right, see you later.